But with C-25, the government decided to give a gift to the banks rather than to the public. As the holidays arrive and everyone's trying to prepare and make ends meet, in the best-case scenario, the federal government is opening the door to all kinds of hidden fees. That's what C-29 is. By circumventing Quebec law on banks and consumer protection, the Liberals are claiming to act to help the middle class, whereas they are doing the opposite. Merry Christmas.
Comments to congratulate the winners of the 2016 Governor General's History Awards, which were awarded this past Monday, November 28th at Rideau Hall. The awards celebrate the exemplary work of teachers, writers, filmmakers, scholars, students, volunteers, and community groups who promote and popularize Canadian history by making our country's past relevant, engaging, empowering, and accessible. De plus, mercredi, Son Excellence le Très Honorable David Johnston.
On Wednesday, His Excellency, the Right Honourable David Johnston, will be awarding the Governor-General's Literary Awards 2016 in Rideau Hall. This is the 80th anniversary of this prestigious award, which is administered by the Canada Council. They celebrate remarkable literature and the power to question, explain, and transform our life experiences. My congratulations to the 14 winners this year who represent excellence in Canadian literature in both official languages. You are contributing to a dynamic and creative Canada.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to commemorate a longtime Fort Langley resident, businesswoman, champion of local artists, and super volunteer, the late Brenda Alberts. We lost Brenda far too soon last summer at the age of only 66. She was kind, dynamic, and passionate about her community. Fort Langley was not just her home and business, Fort Langley was in her heart. Brenda owned and operated the birthplace of BC Art Gallery in Fort Langley. She volunteered for Rotary, Relay for Life, the Christmas Bureau, Langley Hospice, and many others. She re-established the annual November 11th Remembrance Day service at the Fort Langley Cenotaph, which now draws thousands of people every year. The Township of Langley renamed 96th Avenue in Fort Langley to Brenda Alberts Way. This major road goes right to the heart of Fort Langley, a fitting recognition. To Brenda's husband, Kurt, and her family, we thank you for sharing Brenda with us. We love and miss her too.
The Honourable Member for Vimy. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to rise today to congratulate Le Courrier Laval, local media that is celebrating its 70th anniversary this year. On November 11th, I had an opportunity to meet many of its employees to transmit this message of congratulations and thank them for decades of service to the people of Laval. Since the end of World War II, the Courrier Laval publishes weekly reports on local, national, and international events. Today, this local newspaper deals with political, economic, and social issues and is delivered to 140,000 Laval households and also has a significant presence online through a website accessible to all. I truly wish to congratulate you for 70 years of success, and I'm sure it will be followed by many more years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, I have recently had the opportunity to visit the Veterans Care Program at Parkwood Institute in London, Ontario. In addition to providing excellent care to more than 130 inpatient veterans, Parkwood Institute is home to one of Canada's original operational stress injury clinics. Clinicians in the OSI clinic receive more than 4,000 outpatient visits from veterans, military personnel, and RCMP officers each year. Their care providers treat a wide range of mental health issues, including post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and substance abuse, with positive outcomes for veterans. Their treatment focuses include both support of the individual veteran and family. Parkwood Institute is known across the country as a leader in mental health treatment and research for both veterans and the general population. They're currently leading the nation's first zero suicide initiative, I want to congratulate them on all their work and the care they provide for military and RCMP veterans.
Honourable Member for Argenteuil-La-Petite-Nation. Today, we saw the victory parade for the 104th Grey Cup in Ottawa following the victory of the Red Blacks against the Calgary Stampeders this weekend. You have to go back to 1976 for the 64th Grey Cup final to see the winners in the streets of Ottawa. That year, although we didn't know where the parade would take place, we did know that it would be the Rough Riders who'd win.
Rough Riders faced the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. So yes, both teams had roughly the same name. We are proud of our sports team. We saw today at the parade, with the presence of many fans, that they occupy a great place in our lives and bring us a great emotion. Congratulate to the Red and Black for your victory. Congratulate to all the teams.
Honourable Member for Peace River Westlock.
Mr. Speaker, while children are busy writing to Santa, rural Canada was given the big bah humbug by this Liberal government regarding the infrastructure items on their wish list. Big Lakes County in my riding wants new potable water facilities. Residents in Lacrete want an all-season bridge across the Peace River. For Westlock, Whitecourt, Bard, and many other rural communities across Canada, aging infrastructure is jolly no more and wishing for a visit from the ghosts of Christmas past when governments cared. For under the Grinch's new infrastructure scheme, funding is only gifted to projects worth $100 million. This holiday season, these rural communities will be left with an empty stocking. And on top of that, the Liberals won't even leave Canada with a lump of coal because they're phasing that out too. Mr. Speaker, rural Canadians are not on St. Nick's naughty list. Will the Liberals offer them some peace and goodwill? Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas.
Honourable Member for Eglinton Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, I stood with the Minister for Public Safety as he announced enhancements to the Security Infrastructure Program, which offers essential support to communities at risk of hate-motivated crimes. Recent offences involving the homes of faith leaders, places of worship, and other incidents in public serve as a stark reminder that we cannot take for granted our hard-fought-for fundamental freedoms. This matter hits close to home in my riding of Eglinton Lawrence, as I'm sure it does everywhere in Canada, where we have a diversity of faiths and communities, all of whom have a right to worship peacefully without fear for their safety.
Mr. Speaker, I assure you that our government will continue to make sure that security infrastructure projects are implemented so that all Canadians can practice their religion freely and safely.
The Minister said there is no social license for hate. Not in this country. Freedom, diversity, and inclusion are at the heart of our way of life, and we will protect these values. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Nipissing, Temiskaming.
Mr. Speaker, to say that Jim Marmino is a dedicated volunteer and a tireless fundraiser is an understatement. As he puts it, he aspires to inspire before he expires. Jim
is a retired high school history teacher who's passionate about boxing and education.
Benefits a long list of organizations such as the Alzheimer's Society, the CNIB, the North Bay Symphony Orchestra, the local Italian-Canadian Club, and the Special Olympics.
He's also involved in efforts to build a hospice in North Bay that will provide medical care for patients in terminal phases.
First, the North Bay YMCA presented Jim with its Peace Medal for his commitment to the values of participation, empathy, advocacy, community, and empowerment. I would like to thank Jim for everything he does to make our community a better place.
Honourable Member for Yorkton Melville.
Mr. Speaker, since the 1990s, Canadian troops deployed to countries prone to malaria have received the drug mefloquine. Over the last 20 years, heart-wrenching stories from Fifth Estate, W5, in newspapers and magazine articles have given numerous accounts of lives changed forever by this drug. International Mefloquine Alliance was formed as the devastating effects and mounting suicide numbers were felt worldwide. Yet 25 years later, our troops suffering the effects of this drug are still crying out for help. Recently, the Veterans Committee heard from Somalian and Afghanistan veterans. Since then, many more have come forward. Families who lost loved ones, veterans, soldiers, civilians, revealing the hardships of living with the permanent scars of mefloquine use. 3 weeks ago, a suicide was averted in New Brunswick when a veteran saw a story on mefloquine toxicity, reached out to one of the witnesses, realized he was not alone, and there was hope. The veteran stories are coming from all over Canada, from so many of our ridings, our communities. We need to face this issue and right the wrong for our veterans, serving members, and Canadian civilians harmed by mefloquine.
The honourable member for La Salle-et-Verdun.
Will mark a red-letter day in Canadian soccer history. L'Impact de Montréal.
The Montreal Impact, led by Didier Drogba, Nacho Piatti, and Laurent Simon, will confront the Toronto FC at the MLS Championship semifinal.
That as an Italian-Canadian kid playing local soccer, that 60,000 people would have attended the first match in Olympic Stadium, I would have said impossible. And yet that's precisely what happened last week when the Impact won 3-2. More than 30,000 people are expected for the match at BMO Field in Toronto tomorrow evening.
Mr. Speaker, soccer is the game of the future for Canada, and it unites us all through Canadian cultural diversity. Moreover, the Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver clubs have a mission to train and form our youth. Congratulations to Toronto FC and the Montreal Impact, and bravo to the Saputo family, and go Impact.
The honourable member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise in the House today to recognize Stephen Heighton, a resident of my riding of Kingston and the Islands, who recently won the Governor-General's Literacy Award for his 5th poetry collection, The Waking Comes Late. This award brings valuable and much-deserved recognition from his peers and readers across the country. Mr. Heighton's fiction and poetry have been translated into 10 languages, and his accolades are too numerous to list in the time I have today. Mr. Speaker, Stephen Heighton's The Waking Comes Late has been described as a journey deepening as we read, locating the complexities of the personal in a wide range of social issues while playing masterfully with language, form, and tone. A mature work, smart, moving, inventive, and original. Please join me today in congratulating Mr. Heighton on this achievement.
The honourable member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We found out with great surprise and sadness the death of a great builder who was at the dawn of the achievement of his life. Mr. Guy Drouin died 4 days before the official opening of his new concept, Bora Bora. A visionary businessman, he built an empire, a winter tobogganing field in Valcartier. He transformed it into a mega park that's recognized nationally. And then he continued with Ontario Calypso. To complete the trilogy, he put his efforts behind the investment of Bora Bora, an aquatic indoor park, and a 4-star hotel. He was a great businessman in my riding of Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier in the greater Quebec City area. He was a discreet leader with great determination and visionary entrepreneurship. We wish our condolences to his family, particularly his 3 sons, Mathieu, Simon, and Jérôme. Thank you for continuing on your father's path as he asked you to do.
The honourable member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, beginning on November 26 and continuing this week, the Ukrainian community, along with many Canadians, is commemorating the millions of victims of the 1932-33 Holodomor genocide and the forced starvation of millions of Ukrainians by Stalin's dictatorship. I encourage all members to join me today in visiting the Holodomor National Awareness Tour mobile classroom at the foot of East Block for an interactive education on the genocide, and/or to attend the special commemoration this evening at 8 p.m. in Center Block 256S. Please join me in giving a heartfelt thanks to my uncle Denis Zirovich, as well as Bogdan Onishchuk for their leadership and vision in creating the mobile classroom, with the aim of increasing Holodomor awareness across Canada. Thanks to them and the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress for ensuring that the sacrifice of those that have died will never be forgotten, and for reminding us that we each play a role not only in fighting hate and discrimination anywhere in the world, but also in promoting the values of freedom, democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Vichnaya Pamyat. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, the U.S. election has cast a dark shadow for many across North America. Donald Trump ran a campaign based on hate and blame and misogyny and xenophobia. He threatened the forcible deportation of millions and has mused about a national registry for Muslims. In Canada, we aren't immune because we've seen a rise in hate attacks against synagogues and mosques. Just last week, I spoke to a number of people in the Muslim community, and there is a deep worry that these forces of division will drive deeper wedges within our national fabric. But they also told me that they're hopeful because in difficult times, you see what people are made of, and Canadians will rise above the politics of fear and division and paranoia, just as I know many of our American cousins will rise to the better angels of their nature. So how do we do this? It's about getting active in our community. It's about standing up. It's about speaking out. It's about telling our neighbors that we've got their back, because the politics of community will beat the politics of fear any day.
The honourable member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, it's with sadness that I rise today. Yesterday, during the crash of a CF-18 in Cold Lake, Canada lost a hero, Captain Thomas McQueen, from the 401st Squadron. He died too young after 10 years of service defending Canada.
McQueen family. Captain McQueen's energy and dedication made him a leader among his peers. Until the very end, he was dedicated to the defense of Canada.
He worked brilliantly during Operation Impact in the fight against the Islamic State. We will always owe him a great deal for his commitment. But all these good words will not replace what he represented for his partner and future wife. Please know that Canadians share your sadness and pain. We are all in shock. Canada's lost a son.
The honourable member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, Waterloo Region is Canada's 10th largest population centre and one of Canada's fastest growing areas. It is renowned as a centre of innovation, entrepreneurship, post-secondary education, high-tech, and both advanced and traditional manufacturing. Today on Parliament Hill, we welcome the region's municipal leaders, Waterloo Region Chair Ken Sealing, Kitchener Mayor Barry Burvanovic, Waterloo Mayor Dave Jaworski, Township of Woolwich Mayor Sandy Shantz, and Cambridge Councillor Mike Mann and Mike Murray, Chief Administrative Officer. Earlier today, they met with the Prime Minister, Governor General. Our visitors and their senior staff will be meeting with ministers and parliamentary secretaries. We ask you to join us in wishing them a productive day of advocacy for Waterloo Region.
Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is getting close to approving pipelines, Northern Gateway and Ridgeline 3, and perhaps Kinder Morgan. And now, if these pipelines are built, they could create more than 65,000 jobs across this country. If he wants to, if he has the political will, the Prime Minister can help thousands of Canadians get back to work. But he needs to understand that approval is just the beginning. It's not the end. He must approve them, and then he must champion these projects through to the end. Once he says yes, will the Prime Minister do what it takes to get these projects built?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I've always said, we understand that you cannot build a strong economy without protecting the environment at the same time. The previous government failed in doing that, and that's why they were unable to get our resources to market. What we know is that putting forward strong environmental protections while we create good jobs and get our resources to market is the only way to move forward as a country, and that's exactly what we're committed to doing.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, under the dictatorship of Fidel Castro, thousands of Cubans were imprisoned, impoverished, and even executed. Our Canadian values of free speech, free thought, and assembly were curtailed and even banned. This is why so many Canadians were astonished that on behalf of them, the Prime Minister described Fidel Castro as a remarkable leader. When the Prime Minister praised Castro, one of the world's worst dictators, what was he thinking?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the friendship and connection between the Canadian people and the Cuban people has long been established and has marked our history on both of our sides of the border. The fact is, Canadians well know that whenever I am anywhere on the world stage, I bring up human rights and I talk about their importance for Canadians and for us, as I did a week and a half ago when I was in Cuba.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition Order.
Except for in Cuba, Mr. Speaker. Monsieur le Président, sur le directeur...
Mr. Pico, under the direction of Fidel Castro, there were Cubans executed. They had no freedom of expression. That was banned. That is why so many Canadians were astonished when the Prime Minister referred to Castro as a remarkable leader. When the Prime Minister published his statement, what was he thinking? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the friendship between the people of Cuba and Canada has been remarkable for decades, and in reality, Canadians know full well that each time I am present on the international scene, I talk about human rights, I talk about just how important that is for Canadians, for all of us. And that is something that I did a week and a half ago when I was in Cuba as well. Yeah. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's point man on marijuana legalization was the star at a Cash for Access fundraiser attended by marijuana lobbyists. This is clearly against the Prime Minister's ethical guidelines. We do know that one of these lobbyists said that she gets emails all the time from the Liberals asking her to come to these fundraisers. So, Mr. Speaker, how many times has the Liberal Party used the government's marijuana point person to raise cash for marijuana lobbyists for the Liberal Party of Canada?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's important that Canadians be reassured that we have at the federal level some of the strongest rules around election financing, not just in the country, but indeed around the world. The fact is the Liberal Party is always following all the rules and the values that Canadians expect in terms of openness, transparency and accountability. And Mr. Speaker, we will continue to uphold the trust of Canadians.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the last time that he was in the House, I asked the Prime Minister about his own Cash for Access events with Chinese billionaires, members of the Communist Party. He answered by talking about the government business that he conducts at these events on behalf of Canada, saying that he's looking for investment. So he himself confirmed that he mixes government business and party politics. Exactly. And this is clearly wrong. So will he finally do the right thing and stop violating his own ethical guidelines?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The fact is, Mr. Speaker, we can be confident as Canadians that we have an extraordinarily strong system for electoral financing. Canadians can be reassured that the level of accountability and openness and indeed limits on electoral financing are in place for very good reasons, and the Liberal Party always follows those principles.
The Honourable Member for Outremont.
One of the Prime Minister's Cash for Access private dinners was held last May. 35 people at $1,500 a pop. That would mean $50,000 into the Liberal coffers. One of the people present, Thomas Liu, had a $1 billion canola deal on the line. A few weeks after the Prime Minister's private dinner, the government made a deal with China, and Mr. Liu got what he wanted. Whoa. Simple question for the Prime Minister. What did he discuss with Mr. Liu at that dinner?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government is very proud that we stood up for Western canola farmers and got access to the Chinese market. The fact is that thousands of farmers across Western Canada were worried about the fact that China had made it much more difficult for them to sell their canola to China. That is exactly what we worked on with the Chinese government, and we secured that access that Canadian farmers needed so desperately.
Order. Order. I ask members, including the member for Brantford-Brant, to restrain themselves. I said I asked members, including the honourable member for Brant, to restrain themselves during the question period. The honourable member for Outremont has the floor.
Mr. Liu is not a Western canola farmer.
The Prime Minister himself regularly participates in financing activities which provide privileged access to himself and his ministers. The Parliamentary Secretary responsible for the legalization of marijuana also participated in a special event with representatives and lobbyists from the marijuana industry. What ethics? Does the Prime Minister really not understand that they're violating their own rules? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, despite all of the political games being played by people in this House, the reality is that Canadians can have confidence. We have a very rigorous system when it comes to funding. We have a stronger system than elsewhere in the country and continent-wide. We will continue to ensure that there is openness, transparency, that it remains so that Canadians can have confidence in their government system and their government itself.
The Minister was crystal clear during the campaign that if the Liberals formed government, the review of Kinder Morgan would have to be, quote, redone. This was seen as a departure from the Harper approach, and I'm sure the message won the Liberals quite a bit of support in BC and across the country. Let's say someone convinces you that they will stand firm in order to get your support, but once they have your support, you reverse the position. Whoops. Wouldn't the Prime Minister call that a betrayal?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have been very clear over the past number of years that one of the fundamental responsibilities of any Canadian Prime Minister is to get our resources to market, but to do that in a responsible, sustainable way that respects both science and Indigenous communities. One side of this House wants us to approve everything and ignore Indigenous communities and environmental responsibilities. The other side of the House doesn't care about the jobs or the economic growth that comes with getting our resources to market. We are the party in this House that understands that, and that's why Canadians gave us their confidence in the last election.
Member for Outremont.
The honourable member for Outremont.
I'm sure it's because that Goldilocks approach is just right that he's got MPs taking down their websites on Kinder Morgan as we speak.
During the election campaign, the Prime Minister promised to put an end to Stephen Harper's approach for developing energy projects. Now in power, the Prime Minister is using exactly the same process to approve exactly the same pipelines. Is the Prime Minister not ashamed of having betrayed the confidence of voters in BC and across Canada when it uses the same rules as Stephen Harper? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have shown that we understand that there is no choice when it comes to what is for the economy and for the environment. We must take both into account at the same time. The two other parties in this House don't understand that. They think we need to make a choice, one over the other. What we understand here is what Canadians understand, that we must create opportunities, economic opportunities, job growth, while protecting the environment at the same time. And that is exactly what we're doing. It's what the previous government could not do. It is what we are doing.
Honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Mr. Speaker, we learned today that the Cash for Access scandal extends to pot lobbyists. The Parliamentary Secretary to the Justice Minister, the very man the Prime Minister put in charge of coming up with new pot laws, attended a Liberal Party fundraiser in Toronto this spring where he posed for photos with the Cannabis Friendly Business Association. When will the Liberals admit that they have a hazy notion of their own fundraising guidelines? When will they clear the air and admit they're breaking all of their own rules?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the member very well knows that when it comes to the rules around fundraising, in Canada we have some of the strictest. Even the Chief Electoral Officer has stated that Canada's political financing laws are the most advanced and constrained and transparent in the world. And it's important that the member recognize that when it comes to fundraising, this party follows the rules and Canadians can be assured of that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo. Perry Sound, Muskoka.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we're awaiting the imminent report of the task force on legalizing pot. Right. And it's now clear that the Liberal Party has taken money from the marijuana lobby, from Big Weed, at another Cash for Access event. In the Globe and Mail today, a Ms. Roach from the Cannabis Friendly Business Association says she gets emails all the time from Liberals asking her to come to fundraisers, and the Liberals took our money happily without questions. When will the Liberals admit that all their claims about following all the rules have gone up in smoke?
Order. The Honourable Government House Leader. Order.
Mr. Speaker, if the member doesn't want to hear from me, perhaps I should once again quote the Chief Electoral Officer. The Chief Electoral Officer stated that Canada's political financing laws are the most advanced, most constrained, and transparent in the world. And in regards to ticketed fundraising events, he confirmed that every party and every campaign do them. When it comes to access to this government has unprecedented levels of access. We will continue to engage with Canadians. We will continue to respond to the very real challenges that they are facing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member of Richmond Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, we learned this morning that the Parliamentary Secretary in charge of pot, appointed by the Prime Minister himself, participated in fundraising events in the presence of pro-marijuana lobbyists at the same time as he's preparing legislation to legalize marijuana. Liberal one day, Mr. Speaker, always Liberal. When will the people on that side of the House respect the rules that were put out by the Prime Minister themselves? Or is it what they're saying that lobbyists are managing the government? Mr. Speaker, as the member knows, the rules that we have for political financing are the most strict in the world, and our party is following the rules. The Chief Electoral Office stated that Canadian laws for political financing are the most advanced and transparent in the world. He has confirmed that all fundraising activities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about the Prime Minister himself and his friends and rules and ethics. Just last summer, what did we see on the website? That the financial director of the party was one of the most involved people in the marijuana industry and is a shareholder in the largest cannabis producer in the country. There's no smoke without a fire. And there's no smoke without pot. If I'm the only one can see that there's a conflict of interest, well, I think we need to ask, when will the Prime Minister respect his own ethical rules? The Honourable Government House Leader. The rules governing political fundraising are the most advanced, and our party is following the rules. We have undertaken consultations, public consultations, at an unprecedented level in order. We have consulted Canadians. We will continue to work with Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, it seems like Cheech and Chong are struck in Groundhog Day with these answers. Abby Roach of Cannabis Friendly Business Association told the media they took our money happily without questions and no one vetted me. She also said, I would rather speak to a politician in an office than have to pay. Well, I guess everyone's got the memo, Mr. Speaker. If you want to talk to this Liberal government, you got to pay up. Here, here. Sounds like cash for access to me. So when will the Prime Minister put an end to these unsavory cash for access events?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the opportunity to rise in this House to remind all members that this government committed to working with Canadians. This government has taken an unprecedented level of consultations when it comes to responding to the very real challenges that Canadians are facing. And when it comes to fundraising rules, the member knows very well, we have some of the most strict rules across this country. And even the Chief Electoral Officer has stated that they are some of the most strict around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Red Deer Lacombe. Order.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we're just trying to weed out the truth here. The Cannabis Friendly Business Association paid the entrance fee and got their 10 minutes of FaceTime with the Parliamentary Secretary to the Justice Minister. Abby Roach said there were a lot of people from the cannabis industry vying for his attention. More from the licensed producers. Licensed producers? Do the Liberals take money from unlicensed producers as well? Does the Prime Minister actually believe in his own open and accountable government document, or did the paper it was written on go up in smoke?
Hear, hear. Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected a government that is here working hard to respond to the very real challenges that they are facing. I'm actually pleased to stand in this House today when we've got representatives from the Waterloo region here, because this government committed to working better with provinces, territories and municipalities so that we can respond to Canadians, so that we can help grow the economy, so that we can sustain the environment, and we know that if we work together more collaboratively, we can make that happen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Desnethie, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, a Manitoba judge decided that requiring residential school survivors to show a perpetrator's sexual intent was, quote, fundamentally inconsistent with past cases involving sexual assault. Instead of applauding this decision, this Minister of Justice is appealing it. The Liberals are arguing these survivors of sexual assault must prove the intent of their abusers in order to get compensation. This is despicable. Yes. Will the Minister do the right thing and immediately drop this appeal?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the government is committed to ensuring justice for all the victims of this dark chapter in our history, and that all those entitled to compensation receive it. We believe the court's decision goes beyond its jurisdiction by unilaterally changing the settlement agreement, which was agreed to by all parties. This could greatly impact the independent assessment process, and the government is therefore appealing the decision.
The
Honourable Member for Abitibi-Bay James, Nunavik, EU. It's a sad day, Mr. Speaker, because I must once again rise to point out to the government that reconciliation is more than words. By going ahead with an appeal, the Minister is sending a message to survivors of these appalling residential schools that essentially they don't have the rights as any others when it comes to justice. And this is indecent, Mr. Speaker. What happened to the promise of a new relationship? So I will repeat the question. Will the Minister of Justice drop the appeal? The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Affairs. The government is resolved to provide justice to all victims of this incident in the dark chapter of our history. All people entitled to compensation will receive it. The court's decision goes beyond its jurisdiction and the settlement agreement that was adopted by all parties. As there may be important repercussions on the assessment, the independent assessment process, the government consequently does.
Mr. Speaker, today the Prime Minister has a choice, and that choice is clear. Approve pipelines and champion projects so that our economy can create good, well-paying jobs, or continue to play politics with the lives of Canada's unemployed energy workers. If built, these safe and modern pipelines will create tens of thousands of family-supporting jobs that would help pay the mortgage and put food on the table. Will the Prime Minister approve these job-creating pipelines today and do everything in his power to ensure that they actually get built?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the House understand that energy workers in the natural resource sector represent about 20% of Canada's economy. We know how important they have been and how important they continue to be. The member also knows that on the 27th of January, the government announced a set of principles that would govern those projects that were currently under review. At that time, you made commitments. We established principles and timelines. We have respected the principles, and we will respect the timelines.
The member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's oil and gas sector contributes billions of dollars towards our health care, education and social programs and creates hundreds of thousands of well-paying jobs. All of the pipelines we are talking about today were approved months ago by the independent regulator who deemed them to be safe for the environment. These safe and modern pipelines are necessary to help get middle-class Canadians back to work. It's time that the Prime Minister stop playing politics with the livelihood of energy workers. Will he finally stand up for them, approve these pipelines, and ensure they get built?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the government understands very well the importance of the energy sector to the Canadian economy. We also understand that there are many families in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Newfoundland and Labrador who have suffered as a result of low commodity prices. And we understand firmly, Mr. Speaker, that if projects are to be built, the process has to be seen as credible, and the environment and the economy must be developed together.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today, energy workers across Canada and their families are desperately waiting to hear the decision that this government is going to make on Northern Gateway and Line 3. As he talks about these decisions, the more they consult, these severance packages, these EI benefits are exhausted. These energy workers are relying on food banks, and many are losing their homes. Mr. Speaker, today, will the Prime Minister show some leadership? Will he stand up for the Canadian economy? Will he stand up for Canadian jobs and do everything he can to ensure these nation-building projects get built?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we understand the importance of the energy sector, and we also understand the fairness of saying to proponents that there would be timelines that would be respected and a set of principles that would govern these reviews. From the very moment that we announced those principles and the very moment that we announced the timelines, we have been fair and direct with the people of Canada.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Canadians need more than understanding, and actions speak louder than words. Approving a project is one thing, but getting it built is another. Canadians want jobs. Unemployed energy workers and their families are hurting. Their livelihoods and futures are at risk, and they just want to get back to work. Canada's energy workers benefit the standard of living in all communities, and they produce the most environmentally and socially responsible oil and gas in the world. Will the minister remove roadblocks and delays and ensure these pipelines actually get built?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the way in which the previous government went about the business of having these pipelines approved and built didn't work. They didn't work because the Federal Court of Appeal quashed a project because of insufficient consultation with Indigenous communities. And the record will show that during the course of the tenure of the Harper government, there wasn't 1 kilometre of pipeline built to the oceans. We had a choice, Mr. Speaker. The choice was to follow a path that didn't work or to try another one. We chose to try.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil, Chambly. Mr. Speaker, we now know why the government told us that no journalist was currently under surveillance. Well, it's because we learned yesterday that CSIS spied on journalists, and it seems like this practice is still being used. The troubling revelations about surveillance of journalists, Indigenous activists, and CSIS's illegal data stockpiling show a dangerous trend that the government needs to stop ignoring. Can the minister finally take these revelations seriously and hold a public inquiry on freedom of the press?
Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, freedom of the press is a fundamental Canadian value enshrined in the Charter. Yesterday in committee, CSIS officials confirmed exactly what the Prime Minister and the Commissioner of the RCMP and the CSIS Director have said. The recent police activity in Quebec probing journalists for their sources is not happening at the federal level. And we have undertaken to review all of the safeguards in place, and we are completely open to receiving representation from journalists and lawyers about what needs to be done to strengthen the law.
Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, Anbang Insurance Group, a massive foreign conglomerate, is trying to buy a BC-based long-term care provider. Estimates, unconfirmed, place the value of this takeover at over $1 billion, and there is much more that we do not know.
The company's ownership structure is murky. It has tried to hide its identity in previous transactions. And most importantly, we don't know how these health services, these critical health services, will be affected. So will the government commit to a fully transparent review to determine how this foreign takeover will impact Canadians and share those details with this House?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for this question. As the member knows that this particular file is under review under the Investment Canada Act. I said file, Mr. Speaker. With regards to the Investment Canada Act, these are done on a case-by-case basis, and overall our objective is very clear. We're going to do what's in the net benefit for Canada. We're going to make sure that we advance our national interest, and when we make a decision, we'll make that public, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Ottawa West Nepean.
During the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, we are reminded that gender-based violence is far too common in Canada. We are also reminded of the importance that shelters can play in the lives of women experiencing violence. Can the Minister of Status of Women please inform this House what the government is doing to ensure that women have a safe place to turn?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Ottawa West Nepean for the question. We know that when women and girls are facing violence, they deserve a safe place to turn, and that is why we're investing nearly $90 million to build or renovate over 3,000 spaces over the next 2 years. And it is why I announced last week $1 million in funding for the Canadian Network of Women's Shelters to collect better data and to provide better services. And it is also why we are currently developing a federal strategy to end gender-based violence. Our government is working to ensure that women and girls can reach their full potential. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, Royal Canadian Air Force Commander General Hood confirmed yesterday that the Liberals unilaterally changed the number of jets the Air Force needs. When asked why, he said, "I'm not privy to the decisions behind the policy change." On a decision of this magnitude, why is the Defence Minister not consulting with the Commander of the Air Force? Why is the Minister playing politics with our military?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I think the member opposite should not take the words out of context. Our NORAD and NATO obligations have not changed. The only thing that has changed that our government is not willing to risk manage our commitments. We're going to make sure that we have all the necessary capabilities, all the necessary aircraft to be able to fill all these obligations. That's the only thing that has changed, Mr. Speaker, and it was a policy of the previous government to risk manage those obligations.
Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, they didn't consult with the Air Force. They made this decision entirely in isolation, and this was politically driven by the PMO. They put a lifetime gag order on over 230 federal employees to cover up this political interference. Will the minister confirm General Hood was pushed to the sidelines while the minister forced his politically driven decision on our Air Force?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, the only thing that has changed right now is we're going to make sure that our Canadian Armed Forces has the right tools to fulfill all the work. A lot of work has been done. Our obligation to NORAD, NATO, and any unforeseen circumstances is extremely important. We're going to make sure we have all the right tools. We're not going to be asking our Air Force to risk manage our obligations. We're going to make sure that we have all the right tools, and that's what we're going to be providing, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, we learned where the capability gap in the RCAF comes from. General Hood confirmed that it's a Liberal government that created this gap. The Liberals increased the number of jets that the RCAF must have available at any time. So this isn't a national security decision, this is a political decision to allow the Liberals to buy out-of-date Super Hornets immediately. Can the Minister please tell us when and why the requirements changed?
Minister of National Defence.
Let's make this very clear in terms of math here. We have a NORAD obligation that has not changed from the previous government to now. We have a NATO obligation as well. When you combine the two, right now we do not have enough operational aircraft to meet both commitments simultaneously, let alone any unforeseen thing. That's the policy that has changed, that we will not risk manage this gap. We're going to make sure that we have enough aircraft to do this, and that's what our announcement was about last week. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Public Services and Procurement has the mandate, among other things, to ensure that government contracts are A, financially viable, B, that they respect the priorities and interests of the Federation, and C, that they benefit Canadians and our businesses. And right now, we're missing details to allow us to judge the contract to buy new jets. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister confirm today what will be the individual price of each individual aircraft? Thank you.
The Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for his question. We have committed, as we said we would do, to an open and transparent competition. We are looking to get the best plane we can get for the men and women in uniform. That's exactly what we're going to do. We are not going to prejudge the outcome of an open and transparent competition, but we are going to work with all suppliers, and all aircraft that meet the requirements will be able to compete.
Order. The Honourable Member for Essex.
Mr. Speaker, last Friday, the U.S. Lumber Coalition filed a petition triggering what could be the start of yet another softwood lumber war. And this is before Trump has even been sworn in. Last time around, unfair duties and a bad deal led to the closure of hundreds of Canadian mills and the loss of tens of thousands of good-paying jobs. Day after day, the minister refuses to lay out a plan. When will this government stand up for Canadian workers? When will they ensure Canadians don't bear the brunt of another softwood lumber war?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, it was the previous Conservative government that allowed the old softwood lumber agreement to expire and did nothing to launch new negotiations. Canada is prepared for any situation, and I want to assure Canadians we will vigorously defend the interests of Canadian workers and producers. International courts have invariably ruled in our favor in the past, and we are confident they will do so again. I will, at the same time, continue negotiations with Ambassador Froman in Geneva over the weekend. We're seeking a good deal for Canada, not just any deal.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, it's difficult to believe that security is a priority for the Transport Minister when the Auditor General notes in his report this morning that the Minister cut by 59% the car testing budget, reduced funding for regional collision investigation teams, and refused to impose a new anchoring system for child safety on the industry to ensure the safety of our children. So, Mr. Speaker, given this report, will the minister end the cuts and stop playing with the safety of Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. In the 2016 budget, we announced $5.4 million in additional funding for testing safety of Canadian automobiles. We also have in the budget $7.3 million to create new regulations on new vehicles, which will be coming in the years to come, self-driving vehicles. Also, in addition to that, we've just put before the Senate a bill to increase and strengthen the security of our cars. We're doing a lot, Mr. Speaker.
In 2001, a quarter of the CBC's funding was from advertising, but this has fallen in recent years as advertisers are abandoning CBC programs. Today, it seems only around 15% of revenues come from advertisers. Taxpayers are now being asked to make this failure into a virtue. The solution, another third of $1 billion per year from the poor beleaguered taxpayers and a guaranteed annual increase in the CBC subsidy forever. Does the government agree with the CBC president that their business model is, quote, profoundly and irrevocably broken?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We just reinvested $675 million in the CBC. And also, we decided to launch important public consultations on how to support Canadian content in a digital age. What we heard in these public consultations is Canadians love the CBC. 30,000 people participated in these public consultations. 30,000. Hundreds of people submitted ideas and reports. And of course, I understand the CBC submitted their own report. We'll be studying all submissions, and we will develop.
Honourable Member for York Simcoe.
Apparently, all that money isn't working. Canadians look for high-quality Canadian content from the CBC, but fewer are watching. In 2001, the CBC drew almost 10% of the primetime audience. Today, that number is close to 6% as viewers tune out. No wonder ad revenue is in free fall. The CBC has a solution. Taxpayers can be conscripted to replace ad revenue. After all, when Liberal spending is out of control, what's $1/3 billion between friends? Do the Liberals really plan on rewarding falling viewership by giving the CBC even more of taxpayers' money?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We understand that the media and entertainment sector are facing important challenges because of technological changes that are affecting how people consume information and entertainment. And this is why we decided to look into the entire federal policy toolkit to adapt it to the digital age. Our entire federal policy toolkit doesn't take into consideration the Internet, the Broadcasting Act, and all different levers within heritage were developed under the Maroon.
The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, as the Minister of Canadian Heritage continues her endless consultations, CBC asked for $400 million in additional funding and asks that its funding be depoliticized by being indexed to inflation. Now, we can imagine that the Minister is going to accept all of their requests because, as she said herself, the choice is easy. It's CBC. Mr. Speaker, will this government continue playing Santa Claus for its friends and unfairly spend another $400 million? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we have said many times, we already in the election campaign announced that we would invest $675 million in CBC Radio Canada, and we did that. Why? Because we want to fix the conservative cuts of the last 10 years, and because the people of Canada believe in the importance of having a public broadcaster that is strong. That having been said, I've also launched public consultations. 30,000 people participated in those public consultations, and in 2017, we'll come up with a new plan. The Honourable Member for Mississauga Lakeshore. Mr. Speaker, we know that middle-class Canadians work hard and pay their fair share, but that certain lucky taxpayers hide their income in tax havens. The government is committed to fighting those who use sophisticated strategies to hide their income in foreign jurisdictions to avoid paying taxes. Can the Minister of National Revenue please inform this House of the strategy that's been put in place to find, identify, and deal with these individuals? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague from Mississauga Lakeshore for his important question. Our government is more committed than ever to the fight against tax evasion because we understand that all Canadians have to pay their fair share. The investment of $444 million has made it possible to put into operation the jurisdictional approach. We are looking at 4 jurisdictions per year. We've started by the Isle of Man. We are now on Guernsey. We are looking at $7 billion worth of transactions. This is just a beginning. Other jurisdictions will follow.
For Langley Aldergrove.
Mr. Speaker, winter is here and the Liberal government is leaving Canadian seniors out in the cold with that mandatory carbon tax. Our carbon tax will increase the price of everything: housing, hydro bills, gas bills, food bills, clothing, transportation, and the list goes on and on. The fact is, many seniors are on fixed income and well over 500,000 are low income. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister forcing Canadian seniors to choose between heating their homes or buying essential things like food and medicine?
Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very happy to take this opportunity given to me by my colleague very generously to remind the House to what extent the well-being of our seniors is one of the priorities of our government. And it has been since we announced last March an increase in the GIS, $1,000, which is $13,000. We've also changed the admissibility policies for OAS to bring them back to 65 years. That's going to help 100,000 seniors get out of poverty in which they were in because of the insensitivity of the previous government.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian small business owners pay among the highest fees in the world for credit card transactions. The government appears to understand this as a problem, as one of their own MPs tabled a bill to reinforce the government's power to regulate these fees. But the debate on this bill has been delayed for the 4th time. After this government chose to break their promise to reduce small business taxes, small business owners deserve answers. Why are they avoiding debate on their own bill? Is it because the government has no intention of acting on these exorbitant fees?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we remain consumed with the idea that we want to improve the economy of Canada, which will help Canadians across the country and help small businesses. We are taking multiple measures to improve our economy. We do recognize that as we look at individual measures like what businesses and consumers pay for their credit card fees, that we have to come up with ways that work. The previous government put in place an agreement with the credit card companies that we've reviewed that appears to be working. We are continuing consultations to see if it can be improved further.
Honourable Member for London North Centre.
Mr. Speaker, London, Ontario has been an important centre for manufacturing in Canada for decades. Despite serious challenges that have been faced by this sector since 2008, I believe strongly that there is still a bright future in store for manufacturing in London. Would the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development be able to update this House on what the government is doing to create well-paying, good quality manufacturing jobs in London and Canada?
Good question. Minister. Order.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the member from London North Centre for his very thoughtful question and the advocacy he's doing in that region. As he's mentioned, Canada's manufacturing sector is a cornerstone of our economy, Mr. Speaker, and in London and other communities across the country, we're making significant investments in creating conditions for growth. Just to put that in perspective, most recently we invested $15 million in Hanwha in London, Ontario. This is really to help with advanced manufacturing, to double capacity, and to create 85 new jobs, Mr. Speaker. These are the kind of investments we're making to grow the economy, create jobs in London and across the country.
For Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, this government, the Liberals, talk a good game about the importance of nation to nation and consultation, but they're failing. Bill S3 is being criticized by the National Chief Bellegarde, Native Women's Association, Quebec Native Women's Inc. The litigant stated the first time he knew about the bill was when he was called to committee to testify. Further, the Indigenous Bar Association says they're riddled with technical flaws. When will this minister end her paternalistic Ottawa knows best approach and consult with those that are directly affected?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the government has been working with Indigenous groups to eliminate the known sex-based inequities in the Indigenous registration to respond to the Deschanel ruling. On October 25th, we introduced the legislation to address the injustices by eliminating known sex-based inequities, and I apologize for my department not speaking directly with Mr. Deschanel. I did speak with Mr. Deschanel now, and that we will move forward on this bill and put 35,000 people get their rights back in by getting this bill through.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, the law is clear. A bank cannot charge any fees to a client unless the amount is specifically stipulated in the contract. That's called consumer protection. It's protection for everyday people. Additional credit card fees, more check transaction fees, and exchange rate fees. Well, in Quebec, if they're abusive, people can fight those fees. But the Liberals have just decided that that's asking too much of the banks, and they're going to dispense them of their obligation to respect people. Honestly, Mr. Speaker, how can the Liberals justify these actions? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we want to be certain that Canadian consumers are protected across the country. We have changed the rules, and our rules ensure that consumer protection rules are the same across the country. That continues to be the case. in our Canadian rules. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, I will now read the motion that the National Assembly of Quebec has just passed unanimously. That the National Assembly reiterate the importance of maintaining the beneficial consumer protection regime as laid out in the Consumer Protection Act. And that the National Assembly demands that the federal government remove the provisions in Bill C-29 which would invalidate the Consumer Protection Act provisions concerning the relationship between banks and their clients. Will the Minister of High Finance listen to the National Assembly of Quebec and amend his bill? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we want to be clear. It's very important to have rules that protect Canadian consumers. That's why we have introduced clear rules. With our rules, Canadian consumers will be protected around the country.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of someone familiar, the Honourable Jerry Byrne, Minister of Advanced Education, Skills and Labour for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. I would also like to draw the presence in the gallery, to the attention of honourable members, the presence in the gallery of the recipients of the 2016 Governor-General's Literary Awards: Bill Wazer, Catherine Ego, Colleen Murphy, Dominique Fortier, Jean-Éric Lapano, Kellen Hatanaka, Laser Letterhandler, Madeleine Tien, Martine Levitt, Roger Gérard Roger, Roland Viau, Stéphanie Lapointe, Stephen Hayton. Ordre du jour.
Orders of the day. Government orders, government bills, commons, resuming debate at report stage of Bill C-26, an act to amend the Canada Pension Plan, the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board Act, and the Income Tax Act.
I encourage members to take their conversations out into the lobbies. Order. Resuming debate. Resuming debate, the honourable member for Central Okanagan, Smilkameen Nicola.
Speaker, it's a pleasure to rise in this House with yourself and many other members present today to speak about C-26. Obviously, there are philosophical differences that the government has with the official opposition. But as always, Mr. Speaker, I try to add something to the debate, hopefully something that stimulates some better understanding of both sides. This place is Parliament. We are here to discuss various points of view, and at the end there will be a logical conclusion, Mr. Speaker, one that obviously serves the country. Democracy is a great thing.